We should never allow the government to decide what is acceptable speech and what is unacceptable speech. We should penalize behaviors, not opinions, and not speech. If you start trying to regulate speech, you start trying to regulate thoughts, you start trying to regulate beliefs rather than behaviors, there's no way that you're not going to abridge the constitutional rights of millions of Americans.
Tonight on CBS, an astonishing lost audio tape has been found from the late Dave Seville's personal recordings. Dave Seville is best remembered as the band leader of the infamous Alvin and the Chipmunks band. Today on CBS, hear his revelation and conspiracy thoughts of an impending threat to his band's success.
To shoot him, I mean, not just once.
You would be saying, Alvin!
Whatever you
This is CBS. From the studios of CBS News in New York, tonight we present this exclusive special on the unknown recordings of the famous band leader, Dave Seville. Known for his work with the Alvin and the Chipmunks band, his early successes are overshadowed by this lost revelation that he believed an attempt would be made by rival recording companies who wanted to stop the band's monopoly on the newest rag of the time, chipmunk music. Hear his actual words tonight. Hosted by David Carter, son of the late reporter for CBS News who covered the entire story from its beginning in 1965. Here now is David Carter.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to give you the rare opportunity to hear a recently located audio recording that was found in the materials that were found in Dave Seville's home during the estate sale of his personal effects after he died. This was roughly in 1972, 1973. The recording, and we have it right here, is a magnetic tape that he recorded many of his early conceptual ideas for music that he and Alvin and the Chipmunks did for Capitol Records. Now, we're not going to be airing any of the early works he did. This magnetic tape, I'll show it to you, is this is the only recorded evidence we've ever found that proves conclusively that Dave Seville believed, even before the shooting in 1965, that there was a conspiracy ongoing by Capitol, by Peter Pan Industries. He strongly believed it, even though the day of the shooting, I guess it just slipped out that he already was facing the potential of dying after Alvin shot him. And this recording was done based on the date it shows sometime after John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963. The recording is a historical account of the fact that Dave believed that this unique group that he had started with Alvin, Theodore, and Simon could potentially threaten Capitol because they held the monopoly. And he believed that if it wasn't going to happen within 1 or 2 years, that he figured it might happen within the next decade, and that would have been in the 1970s. This recording, even though it's not really any new evidence as to the actual impersonator, Alfonso Gorkin, it proves to us at CBS News that Dave knew beforehand that it was going to happen. He just had a premonition that somehow or another somebody might try to do something to destroy this contract, this negotiation setup that they had with Capitol, because he knew he was the originator of it. He knew that other rival companies might try to get into this and attempt to either hurt him, maybe some of the Chipmunks, and he wanted to make certain that these facts were put down in a record form so that if something happened to him, he'd at least be able to tell people that this is truly what did happen to him. This is what ended up taking his life, because he already knew it was going to take place. So we're going to present it now on this special CBS television account of this unknown recording that was done by Dave Seville around 1963. There is no specific date on the tape itself, except that it says it was November 1963, so it must have been not too long after John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. Maybe he felt, because of what had happened to the president, that he himself could be potentially a target, and he wanted to put it down in the record that these are his thoughts. This is what he was thinking of at the time that he recorded it, that he thought perhaps his life might be in danger at some time in the future, because he was high on success of what he had started with the group, and he knew that the more they were able to expand this franchise, that it potentially could be used in a manipulative way by other record companies, that rival companies could do something. And in history, we know what did happen. Alvin was impersonated by another chipmunk. He shot Dave. He almost was killed. And then the impersonator, once he was put in jail at San Quentin, they determined he was mentally unstable, and then ended up being killed himself. He was stabbed multiple times, and nobody really knows to this day that he was the actual victim, because they never allowed his body to be viewed in public. So all we have is just records from San Quentin's warden, from other prisoners who were there who saw it. But as far as any photographic evidence, it never happened, because they refused to let anybody photograph it. So CBS now presents for your investigation, your personal perception of what this is about, and we leave the conclusions up to you to decide of what really did happen on December 25th, 1965, when Dave was shot down by Alvin at EMI Capitol Records during one of their Christmas recording sessions with Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Look, everybody, I'm so busy right now. I just felt like I wanted to stop after all the excitement we've been having on the set and the stage and everything else, doing all these fantastic recordings. I gotta stop and explain something to all of you. It's been bugging me for a while. This is about a week or so after Kennedy's assassination, and it just makes you wonder about life itself. How long do you have, you know? And I wanted to put this down on a tape. Maybe sometime in the years to come I might find it and find something interesting to share, or something maybe I'll share with all of you now. And if something does happen to me, and I'll explain that to you in a second, you'll at least know why I've said it. When I started the group, I knew that this thing would be a hit, and it has become a hit. And it's really affected my life. It's affected Alvin and Simon and Theodore. And I just have to say this: there is potential for rogue record companies, groups, even within organized crime, could do something to sabotage the work we've started. I don't want to scare you. I just feel like this is something that should be recorded. It should be documented some way, so that if something happens to me, if something happens to the group, that some way or another it might get into the right hands. Somebody who can take this fact that I'm going to share with you and make it public, at least can't be covered up, They're already saying now Kennedy was assassinated because of a government conspiracy. They're saying Oswald did not shoot Kennedy, that it was a group of Castro mercenaries who were involved with the CIA, and I've heard other things, even the fact that that Oswald was impersonated by some guy from the KGB in Russia. I mean, you get all these things, you're hearing about it all the time, and I just feel like this is something that's serious enough that me and Alvin and the group really, we're not thinking about what potential dangers we face as a recording group of what potentially might happen in the months and the years ahead of us, because we're doing so great. I mean, I know it sounds like, hey, you're paranoid, you're on high ground right now. Why would you want to talk about anything else except the fun you're having about the potential, the potential successes we'll have on television, maybe even a movie. I mean, that's up in the air by EMI. They have that contract with Paramount Television about the animated show coming up, and it just really bugs me because of what just happened. The nation is mourning. We're trying to face the reality that Kennedy is dead, and it kind of knocks you back into reality when these things happen. You got to face the fact that it could happen to you, it could happen to me, and what can I say potentially could happen in the next 2 years, 5 years? I don't know. Will the group continue to be a success? I don't know that either. All I know is that we have a hit on our hands. The kids love Alvin. They love Simon and Theodore because of the childlikeness that we're projecting on the records and on the television. But I've been in the movie business. I've been in the recording business a long time, and I got to tell you, this kind of environment, this kind of business, it kind of is like a wave. You can be on top of it 1 second, the wave rolls down, and then all of a sudden you're in the gutter again. And here we are high on that wave, and then Kennedy dies, and I just have to put these things down about what I'm feeling right now about the potential for us as a group. There are other groups out there that I know will start pretty soon to do something like what me and Alvin are doing, Simon and Theodore. It won't be the same because they know if they copy it completely, there's a copyright subject. But really, if something were to take place and we were no longer the group that we are now, somebody else could take that and use it to their own advantage. And I just potentially see the possibility that either they might try to take us out, they might try to do something. And what is that something? I don't know. I just see this as a dangerous type of environment in the recording business. You're always dog eat dog. Everybody's always looking at themselves. They're looking at what's going on around them. But more importantly, it's about how do you get ahead in the business? How do you keep yourself ahead of everybody else? And right now, with us starting this whole thing, it just feels like, we've been running with it the last couple of years, and it's just been working out so perfectly. And I don't like to be a fatalist about it, but I want to look at every aspect of it. I don't want to just play this, I don't care routine until something happens. I'd like to be able to prepare for the potential that somebody else might do something that would hurt Alvin or any of us. I've talked to some of the execs at EMI, and they're pretty much like most society. They don't care what's going to happen in the next week. They just want to keep pushing the material that we're pumping out of the recording studio. They want us to keep the momentum going, and the more kids hear the music and they see the TV and the cuteness of Alvin and the group, they're satisfied, they're happy, and they'll keep pushing the money too. I promise you. But this issue of a conspiracy regarding Kennedy is something that, for me as a recorder, manager, I feel like it's not too above reality. It could happen. It could very likely happen in our situation in the future. And I just, if somebody finds this record and something does happen to me, something happens to Simon, Theodore, or Alvin, you'll at least know that I guess you could call it a premonition. I just had a potential idea that this thing might be brewing out there. You know, some other rival record company is thinking, hey, we got to get our hands on this monopolized, recording scenario that EMI has with Alvin. We got to get it away from him somehow, or we've got to make this thing denopolized, you know. And I know they're going to try and do that. I mean, we are definitely surfing on high ground here. We're surfing on waves that go higher than what we ever thought when we started. And if we do find ourselves really in the ghetto because the public loses interest of it, then fine, you know. I mean, we'll find something else to do with it, but I think there's too much potential here for someone else not to try and kind of crash our success with EMI and with Capitol. So if something happens, something does take place, I want it recorded somewhere in my effects that I had a feeling it was going to happen, and I wanted it told now before it did or does, that I felt like I was trying to protect the group as best as I could with what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing around me. And hopefully anything that does take place in the future, somebody will find this tape and it'll get to the right people. That's what my hope is for this. You know, I don't see anybody in the group ever doing anything that would hurt this franchise. I trust every single one of them with my life. I don't see anybody being potentially a threat to what Alvin and what the Chipmunks is about. And, I hope to pass this whole franchise on to my son when he gets old enough. That's my hope. I want to keep this thing going as long as I can. And based on what we've done so far, it looks like it's a hit. It's not going to go away. It's not going to phase out. People aren't in a fad here. They see the fun. They see the potential for something that can explode into a franchise that has unlimited possibilities. We're going to expand this whole thing. We're going to keep going with it as long as we can, with whatever we can. Capitol, Liberty, EMI, they've got full hopes. They've got full direct communication with us is what they want us to accomplish for them. And the potential here, according to the execs, is beyond even my wildest imaginations. I mean, these guys, they think ahead in this. They've got ideas that even my mind can't comprehend. They know what they're going to do with it. We started it. The group started it. I started it. We're working this thing as a group. We're never going to phase it out. We're not going to disband because we know what we've got, and we're going to go with it. Look, my wife is beating on the door. I've got to get back out to these ever-increasing publicity media gimmicks that they keep pushing on us. You know, I mean, this is what helps the group, right? This is Dave Seville. I'm just so happy at what we're accomplishing, and I just hope it continues.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the only recording that we know of that exists, and it was found by pure accident. There was a collector who went to the estate sale in 1972 when Dave Seville passed away, and many of the things that he had collected from his sessions at Capitol Records, many other personal recordings that he did, and out of it all, when they were going through this stuff, they found this one tape. And I couldn't believe when we found it. I just could not. I was like, we have to get this on the air. We have to make it a part of our of the network's record of what happened on December 25th, 1965, when Alvin shot Dave Seville. That it was something that he never expected would happen so short a time after the group became so successful. You know that they started doing an animated television show, and they did several other things too, and Dave was just riding high. He had all this money coming in. He knew how good it was, and then after my father interviewed him at the hospital after the shooting, Dave acted as though he never thought it would happen. And I guess when you're facing death, everything kind of like gets clouded in your mind. You're unfazed by anything else that maybe you knew, and all you're thinking about is, how do I get through this? How do I survive day to day? And he did. In the end, though, he died of, I think, a heart attack in 1972. But in 1965, after it took place, he was in the hospital for several months, recuperating. And by all accounts from CBS radio archives and the news that we've found, Dave never publicly made these facts known to people of how he felt about the potential threat to the group, of how successful it had become so quick that he could possibly be a target of a rival company. So it's mind-boggling to realize that Dave knew these things and that it was going to happen. He didn't know when, and then not more than a couple of years after he made this recording, you have an impersonator who came in to EMI. His name was Alfonso Gorkin. He shot Dave at point-blank range with a .22 pistol. They don't know how he got it into the recording sessions, and deliberately shot him. And initially the whole nation thought that it was Alvin who had done it. And then as the years went by, from 1965 to 1969, he was adamant about, he was mad at Dave for the money he was embezzling from the group. He was ticked off that Alvin wasn't being treated the way he thought he should have been, couldn't do the recordings the way he wanted. And so that's what everybody believed. That's what the nation believed for so long. And then when the trial took place, about the time of Neil Armstrong's landing on the moon, Alvin publicly said that he was mad at EMI. He was mad at Dave. He never said he was mad at the other two chipmunks. But it only came out after the fact, when we found him dead in his cell, that he had written a journal basically overviewing what had happened to him. He was a trained assassin who was sent in to assassinate and kill Dave Seville, to destroy this camaraderie group called Alvin and the Chipmunks from recording music that none of the other rival companies, Peter Pan Industries, several other smaller companies, they could not do this music or anything like it because Capitol held a monopoly on it. And so Alvin was, he was replaced by this the impersonator for the deliberate act of killing Dave and disbanding the group. He failed. Dave survived. Thankfully, he came back. He started recording again. Because he had failed his assignment, he was assassinated at San Quentin. And in the subsequent years after that, we learned many of those who were involved from these rival companies who had organized crime connections, they were also put in jail, and they ended up dead too. They were assassinated. Because everybody wants to cover their own butts within the system of organized crime. If one person gets involved, it affects everybody else, so they assassinate them all down the line so that nobody else talks. This way, it covers anybody high up in the organization. And tragically, that is what happened about the case of Alvin and the Chipmunks. Everybody who knew anything is now dead. We only knew about it because of the evidence that we have found at CBS News since it took place. And we hope from this recording that you have just heard, maybe it puts more closure to what you've always felt had happened. Because nobody knew all the facts until now. And it's a mind-boggling fact that even though it did happen, even though all these facts have come forward to the public, most people deny it ever happened. Most people refuse to say that Alvin ever would have tried to hurt Dave Seville, that he ever would have wanted to shoot him. And hopefully now that CBS has done this, we've put it to rest. We've shown it to you. In chronological order, as far as we could, we've tried to explain what did happen on that Christmas morning in 1965 at EMI Capitol Records. I'm David Carter. My father, who did not live to see a lot of these renewal updates about the story, he would have wanted to. He would have wanted to bring this to closure. And now I'm thankful I have a chance to do that. And on behalf of CBS News, on behalf of the estate of Dave Seville, and the group Alvin and the Chipmunks, who today still make recordings, they still make videos, they still make movies, to Ross Bagdasarian-Jr., we at CBS News say this subject about Alvin hopefully now is completely brought to the public's attention. We've shown you all the evidence that we have uncovered by the FBI, by the Department of Justice, and hopefully now everybody can feel closure about what happened. I'm David Carter for CBS News. Thank you for watching this special documentary tonight. And again, never forget that the government itself can cover up, can manipulate facts, because we've just shown it to you on this network. They do, and they still do. Good night.
The following teleplay is copyright by CBS News, uniquely qualified to bring you the world. To obtain a transcript of this program, please send $30 to CBS News Transcripts, 110 East 51st Street, New York, New York, 10018. To order a copy of this program on DVD or live stream, go to cbs.com and click on News Stories. To order by phone, call 1-800-CBS News.
For news 24 hours a day, go to cbsnews.com.
Go, I say go away. You bother me.
What if I don't want to?
I'll spank you.